Hey guys, this is Jay Calder for Jay Unboxing here, giving you a personal prediction for Erickson Lubin versus Sebastian Fundora. And as always, this is just my take. Your predictions, of course, can be left down in the comments section below. Would love to hear them all, especially about this one because this is a tough fight to pick. A little bit of fight info here. We have Lubin versus Fundora, which will be taking place at the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas in, you guessed it, Las Vegas, Nevada. How convenient. Airing on the SHOWTIME network in the junior middleweight division. No title on the line, but of course, some title opportunities definitely there for the winner. Now, this is probably the toughest pick of the year thus far. It's just one of those perfectly matched fights where you can see either guy winning potentially. With Lubin, you've seen him go down hard, you've seen him hurt, yet he's had solid hand speed, decent pop, and fundamental skill. Fundora, on the other hand, is ridiculously tall and rangy and has some solid power and is just, a very awkward style as well as a southpaw, but he is very upright when he fights and can definitely be tagged. This is just a tough one. It is a really, really tough fight to call, and of course, you have to factor in that Fundora also may have lost a fight in his own right, as unofficial as that may be. So there's just so many different things you have to factor in here, of course, but without much more stalling, let's break this one down. So for Lubin to win here, I think he needs to lead with that left hand. He has a really good left hand, and he leads with it very, very well. He has one of those abilities to kind of switch up his shots, especially as a southpaw, where he can jab, jab, and then all of a sudden just go straight into that left hand instead of a 1-2 and kind of catches opponents off guard. He can even drop you with it if he generates enough power. And it's a shot that I think he can catch Fundora on the inside with because Fundora tends to round his hooks quite a bit. So if he can catch him on the inside of those exchanges with those quicker, shorter, more straight shots, I think it'll pay dividends for him in this fight and potentially catch Fundora off guard, maybe even rock him if he's able to continuously land it and land it well. What I would also say is walk Fundora into a shot. Of course, as we're mentioning that left hand, that's certainly going to be the sort of shot we're looking for, but it could also be one of those overhand lefts or even a right because of how much taller Fundora is, who is, of course, at 6'6" or 6'7", depending on what billing you happen to believe. When you're throwing those kind of arcing overhand shots, they tend to land really well on taller fighters, especially if you have good hand speed, good foot movement, and you have an ability to get inside, close some of that distance real quick, and then land that shot as you're stepping in. It's a shot that Fundora, quite honestly, is open for because of how upright he is and because he loves fighting on the inside. So if you can catch him with that sort of double impact, that'll be the shot that I think can definitely help Lubin be successful on the night. I would also say mix up your approach. What I mean by that specifically is you don't want to always come forward because that is going to kind of fight a little bit more of what Fundora is looking to fight in terms of styles, but you also don't want to back up so much that you're allowing him to chase and build up that kind of head of steam. Instead, you're going to want to go in there, land those kind of overhand shots that I mentioned. You're going to want to land that lead left as well, but then you're going to want to maybe back up a bit more and kind of set those traps to land those kinds of shots. You can throw some of those shots to the body that slow him down, start bending him in half. These are the sorts of traps and shots that you're going to want to look for as the fight progresses, and you're going to be able to, I think, have the best shot of landing those kinds of punches if you're mixing up your approach by going in sometimes, backing up and circling at others, and just kind of keeping him guessing as opposed to just fighting one style at one rhythm and pace that might suit him too much. Now, for Fundora to win, I think he needs to get that long jab going. It's an underutilized weapon for him, but especially as he starts to sort of improve his resume and look to step up in these sorts of bigger fights, in order for him to be successful, he's going to need to get a better, busier jab. He's going to need to single it, double it at different times, and just kind of build that sort of gap he's looking for his range. He has the range to do so, and I think if he's able to utilize that successfully in this fight, it's going to give him his best chance. If he's coming in and just going toe-to-toe with every single guy at 154 and eventually at 160 pounds, because let's make no mistake about it, he will eventually have to move up with his frame, he's just not going to have a great deal of success if it's always going to be these sorts of exchanges. It sort of reminds me of a Paul Williams where, yeah, against some of these guys, that'll pay off, and you might even have some success, pick up some titles, but eventually these guys are going to start picking off some of these kind of very simple mistakes that you're making and make you pay, a la Sergio Martinez, and that's just not what he's looking for, obviously, on this night. So a jab can be a great way to tame a fighter, make sure he doesn't have that happen to him if he's Fundora, and just, of course, build the other punches into his game as the fight progresses. And of course, don't leave your chin exposed. And this is going to be a harder one because, of course, one of the, you always hear about the advantages of a taller fighter. Well, one of the disadvantages is it's really difficult to tuck your chin when someone is always sort of underneath that chin. It's difficult to kind of hide that from everyone all the time, especially if you're an action-based fighter like Fundora is. That being said, that does not mean you have to stand all the way upright with your chin all the way out and both hands out looking to try and kind of put some combinations together. You can still guard yourself, you can still roll some shots, you can still put your shoulders in the way, create some angles. It does not have to be something where you're so upright that you're leaving yourself completely vulnerable. He has done that in the past. If he does it here, I think he pays, so it's certainly something he's going to have to keep in mind on the night. And finally, for Fundora, I would say make Lubin back up. I think that's probably his best result here. He's a big guy, but he's an rangy guy, but he's not a boxer puncher. He's certainly not a mover who likes to utilize his feet too much. It would probably be a bit awkward for him at times. So he's not trying to go backwards. Instead, he's trying to move forward, which of course means Lubin has to be backing up. This does a couple of things for Fundora. Number one, it gives him his best chance offensively, but number two, it does take some of the power away from Lubin if he's unable to kind of generate it by pressing forward and stepping into his own shot. This will allow for Fundora to kind of build momentum, build himself into the fight, kind of fight the fight at his range, and of course give him the best chance to land the sorts of shots that can turn the tide in his favor or keep control of the fight. Now, while it's a tough one, I think I'm edging towards Lubin, and fully understand that I may be wrong. But my thinking is pretty simple. Fundora is too upright and leaves his chin too exposed and throws those wider, wilder shots at times to boot. That combination could be what allows Lubin to land hard shots inside those long arms that end up hurting Fundora over the course of the evening. I think Lubin will back up and look to get kind of a read of Fundora as the fight initially starts, but Sebastian will kind of get going as a result of this. That being said, Lubin will start throwing those straighter shots down the middle, and one of those overhand lefts will start to trouble Fundora more and more. Eventually, one of them will drop him or stun him, and Lubin will follow it up with a barrage that I think calls a halt to the action of hurting his taller foe and giving him his first defeat. Lubin via mid-fight stoppage. And again, totally can see this one going any other way. Now, the betting odds sort of suggest that what I'm saying could happen in a way, in the sense that they do have Lubin as a very, very minor favorite in this one at a -20, with Fundora at a +100. So an even fight for him. Really, it's an even money fight for both. This is about as much of a pick'em in terms of betting principles as it can. And the kind of advice one might take from that is kind of bet with who you think is going to win. I would not be comfortable with a large sizable bet in either direction. Even picking Lubin here and being somewhat confident about it, I suppose, I would put a small to mid-sized bet at most, and that's really just depending on how much I feel like risking on the day. It's just one of those fights where you can definitely see either guy winning. Even an over-under kind of seems odd here because it could be a decision. You just don't know with these two. And again, when you have such different styles with different body types and everything else, you just don't know what sort of fight to expect. You hope it's a good one. That's about all you can do. But very much makes the sort of odds and picking these sorts of things much more difficult to do. So, of course, whatever bets you lay there, do so with a little bit of caution. In any event, my prediction record heading into the weekend is 10-2-0 with 2 exact. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts, predictions, especially like I said on this one. Love to hear what kind of brave bets you guys have going as well, so on and so forth. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. You can email me at jagunboxing@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out jagunboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. Be sure, of course, to look in the description box for a link to my other prediction that I did this week, which, of course, was for Gennady Golovkin versus Ryota Murata. You can click that down there and check that out as well. And as always, until next time.